Hey, what's up, guys? This is Adam Heitzman, and welcome back to Tea Time with Adam. Today, we're going to be drinking a rye barrel stored Taste of Hong Kong raw pu'er tea from Liquid Proust. So this tea seems to have originally been a 2008 raw pu'er Hong Kong storage sold by Yeon Tea. I haven't tried that, but maybe I'll get a cake of that just to compare to this. But I really don't know. It's basically that original tea, except it's been stored in a rye barrel for, I think, 41 days in this case. So that should impart some sort of nice rye notes into this tea. Ooh. Already that's an interesting flavor, and this is just the rinse. I still have the rinse set out, haven't even done a full brew of it, but this... Yeah, it's got this interesting sort of like raspberry / dried strawberry kind of note. And yeah, it's really interesting how pronounced that is in just a little like 7-second rinse that's been sitting out for a couple minutes and pretty much cooled a lot. I'm actually just going to drink this rinse because it's pretty good, and then we'll get started. It's got a very light earthiness enveloping it. I mean, you can tell it's a very light brew just because it literally was a rinse. But that actually, this gives it a very interesting character. I've never tasted anything like this. Yeah, that's literally just like raspberry, dried strawberry, but with some like slight, muddy, dirty, woody sort of notes sort of enveloping the whole thing. And yeah, it's a pretty good introduction right there. So let's get started with the actual tea session. Before I get started on tasting this, I'm just gonna get the aroma of the leaves in here. That kind of has that wet woods, earthy, sort of like dusty old Asian market sort of smell at first. You know, sort of what you'd expect from a standard pu'er. That's always kind of how it smells to me, but it does have a slight rye note in the smell. I can definitely get that immediately. It almost just smells kind of antique, if that makes any sense. Like I said, you know, dusty old Asian market, but also kind of like antique store. There's something about it that smells old in a way that's kind of hard to describe, but not necessarily a bad way, if that makes any sense. So right here, we've got the liquor of the first infusion. Nice orange. What? That is interesting. I could have sworn I got like some orange cream soda note. That was weird. Yeah. It's very weird. There's like this orange cream soda very distinct sort of flavor. I can get it kind of right in the front of the tongue. That's interesting. And then the rest of it is just sort of like, it's got this nice, like, just dry, woody backbone to it. Slight astringency, but yeah, that orange, like, cream soda note is very distinct. I didn't get that on my first tasting, which is really interesting, so I don't know why I'm getting that now. Yeah, definitely like dry wood and rye. That's sort of like the backing note, sort of behind everything in this flavor. There is a definite rye character that I can get. There's maybe a slight squash character in the taste as well. And even the flavor has a bit of like a sort of antique story sort of feel. So yeah, one brew and I'd say it's a very interesting tea. I mean, yeah, I've had this before, so I already knew it was going to be an interesting tea, and that's why I picked it for the video, but yeah, so that's about it for infusion 1. I'm going to go heat up the water and get ready for infusion number 2. It's a lot stronger, earthier, woodier, a bit more bitterness in there. Yeah, that 20 seconds I did might have been a bit too much. I probably should have kept it around maybe 15, but this is still pretty good. Like, usually I do not like raw pu'er that's been overbrewed. It's just like the astringency is not something I enjoy. But on this, it's actually not too bad, even though I would consider this overbrewed, at least by my tastes. But it's very much drinkable. I'm not usually a fan of raw pu'er in general, but this one I would say is fairly enjoyable. I really don't know how to describe this flavor because it's not that much different. It's basically every note I mentioned previously, just amped up, except for the orange cream soda, which is gone. So the one like really interesting sort of weird thing is gone. Now it more or less tastes like a normal raw pu'er, except still not really. Normal raw pu'er, I generally sort of get like a dried fruit character, whereas this is almost none of that sort of dried fruit. And I do get a distinct rye note in its place, which, you know, would be expected from the rye barrel. Maybe there's a slight hint of fruitiness sort of on the outside of my tongue. Yeah, some sort of like light berry fruity note just around the outside of the tongue. Very faint, very hard to detect. But all in all, not much fruit in this infusion. That was infusion 2. Let's keep going. Infusion number 3. Still a bit hot to get the full flavor in there, but it's seeming like it's going to be more balanced. I've kind of been paying attention to how like the flavor changes with temperature lately. Like, it definitely sort of really comes out as it cools. Sometimes if it cools too far, you know, it doesn't quite taste as good. But that's why this rinse was particularly interesting at the beginning of the video, because the cup I had been cooling for a few minutes. It was not even that warm, but the flavor was very strong and very delicious. See, just letting it sit for those like 30 seconds while I was talking right there, already a noticeable sort of change in temperature as it cools. Like I can get a lot more notes now. I feel it's even more astringent than before, even though the rest of the notes have kind of come down a little from the last brew. The astringency's gone up, or at the very least stayed the same. Yeah, it looks like I was saying a lot of the same things in my notes from before. In Fusion 3 of last time, I noticed a definite uptick in astringency. However, it's actually quite drinkable for an overbrewed shang. So yeah. The rye flavor seems a little more hidden in this one. It's certainly veiled compared to what it used to be. Now it's mainly just like the dirt and the wood chip notes. Those are sort of the main things I'm getting now. The rye is cut back. But I'm still noticing a bit of that like sort of antique store character in the base. Any of the fruity notes seem to be long gone at this point. I doubt they're coming back. There's just some note in here that I cannot place. Although on second thought, that's probably just the rye. And I'm just not used to having a rye note in the tea. It's like I keep going back and forth between, oh yeah, it's got an interesting rye character, and what is this note? I think that note is the rye, and I've just been forgetting. But yeah, overall, I quite enjoy this. Let's go infusion number 4 or 5 or whatever we're on now. Swear there's a slight sweetness in it. Yeah, that's kind of strange. Because this is a very dry tea, but there's like some hard to place, like very slight creaminess in the base in this infusion. There's a bit of a buttery character in there now. There's also some vague bitterness that's hard to point. Like different from the astringency, there's some other sort of bitter note that I cannot really pinpoint. But it definitely is sort of interesting, yeah. I think that's it for now. If I do any more infusions, they're going to be for B-roll. If I get any notes, maybe I'll turn the camera back on for that. But anyways, that was Liquid Proust's 2018 Rye Barrel Stored Taste of Hong Kong. Thank you for watching. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.